That all sounds amazing. How the hell did you lose?
So the biggest political happening of the year just dropped. Pierre Poilievre went on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. And to be honest, it was quite good. Oddly enough, I'm not one that actually watches podcasts that much, but this one captivated me. Dare I say, it was even amazing. Poilievre came across as calm, rational, relatable, honestly just a normal guy with common sense solutions to the problems that you and I deal with on a daily. Heck, some of his solutions are actually stuff that we discuss on this very show. But I don't want to say any more than that because I've actually watched the entire thing, found all the moments that are worth highlighting, and I want to go through them with you one by one and talk about them so that you can see it for yourself. But I'll say this, the best part by far was watching the epic mainstream media meltdown that preceded this podcast and that came afterwards. Oof. Were those liberal tears sweet, sweet, and salty, baby? My name is Ali Daniel, and this is The Right Call Report. Like, share, subscribe. Any interaction on the channel helps get the truth out and perhaps one day break that CBC coma that so many Canadians are under. And if you're tired of that same old government and media BS and want some common sense commentary, well, smash that subscribe button because you found the right place. So today, it's going to be a twofold episode. First, we're going to go through what preceded the actual airing of the episode. We're going to look at all the media and just how much they tried to spin the entire thing. They just try to get in front of the entire story and paint it as a bleak thing that people should not even bother watching. And then we're going to do the exact opposite. You and I are going to go through all the highlights and see for ourselves what Pierre really had to say when the entire political veil comes down. Because let's be honest, it's goddamn hard to keep face for nearly 3 hours long in a conversation. So you really get to see the raw character of a person that way. So the mainstream media went into overdrive trying to get ahead of the story by painting Joe Rogan as a fringe wacko and criticizing Pierre for going on the show in the first place. And how all of this would have no positive impact for him, and truly, he wouldn't be reaching any new audience because only the fools are watching Joe Rogan, apparently. Now, this lady is a former Liberal staffer. Watch what she had to say, and may I add, they say that the mainstream media is absolutely not the propaganda arm of the Liberal Party. Well, I beg to differ.
Rogan gets a lot of wild things out of people. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but it's a risky environment.
Well, it could be high gain, high risk.
Yeah.
But I think, listen, if the goal here was to get him in front of the most number of people to hear his message, Joe Rogan has 15.5 million followers on X. It's the most listened to podcast. But all of that being said, it is the same people that he is already that are his base. He's not expanding his circle of who he's coming to. And just to be clear, Joe Rogan isn't someone who has editorial standards. He's not a journalist. He's a podcaster and has constantly in the past been criticized for a lot of the misinformation he spreads. So if there was someone who can pull out a bit of controversy, I would say there's going to be a lot of ears and eyes on this podcast because, like Lee said, it's high risk. One small thing off, we know people like Donald Trump listen to this. The only thing that is his advantage is that he is not in government. He is the opposition leader. The president has previously kind of negatively spoken about Mr. Poilievre. So there is risk to his personal brand here. But if you were asking me, did he get in front of a whole new set of crowds? No, I already think he's pandering to the same listener group of the Joe Rogan style.
He's not a real journalist, and he doesn't have editorial standards. What? Because you do? Oh man, this is why I loathe journalists. They see themselves as superior than everyone else. Only they can handle the truth, convey the truth, find the truth, speak about the truth, and everyone else is honestly just spewing BS according to them. This is the same mainstream media, by the way, that is never asking the actual government in power about conflicts of interest, about corruption, about a plethora of issues that are affecting Canadians every day, and not just keep giving softball questions and free passes to the government. So spare me the diatribe about editorial standards.
In the United States, known for maybe some controversial views on some issues. He endorsed President Donald Trump in the last election, though he's kind of soured on him a little bit in recent weeks, especially in wake of the conflict in the Middle East and what's happened with Iran. He was, Joe Rogan being someone who was kind of an isolationist, if you will. But Poilievre has gone on. They just taped the episode today, we're told. It wrapped up about half an hour ago.
Oh no, a controversial figure. Notice again how they're painting Rogan as this near extremist, trying to discredit him. And may I add, Joe Rogan just asks questions. That's the beauty of his platform. He's an amazing conversationalist. He's great at making people open up, and he lets a myriad of experts on different subjects from different political spectrum and different field of expertise talk about what they're experts at. That's the beauty of it. But because he doesn't toe a party line or stick to the pre-approved narrative, well, he's not someone they can control, and that scares them.
The world. Do you think that that's a smart move for Poilievre? I mean, it's very bold for him to go on a podcast like that has been a source of controversy. Cameron, do you think it's
so bold?
Smart politics?
We'll have to hear what he actually said in that interview before determining whether it was smart politics or not. The move itself, I'm going to hold my breath. I'm not going to say it's necessarily bold or clever, because there's a good chance that he's just talking to a lot of people. If we think about Canadians who might be listening to that podcast, who are already supportive of him or already on side.
No, of course, it's not bold to go on the world's largest podcast. By the way, it's ranked number 1 in Canada as well, right? So it reaches a wide audience. And I'll tell you no reason why it's bold. See, when you go on a long form show like that for 3 hours long, you can't go in there with talking points. You're going to run out of them after half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour at best. And then the second part is the front. You can't put up a front for that long. It's incredibly difficult, unless you're a world-class psychopath, to pretend to be a certain person for 3 hours in a casual conversation. And that's the beauty of a 3-hour-long conversation on Rogan, is that you drop the act. You get to see deep down inside who the person is. And this is the exact reason why I think Carney will never do such a show, because there's been call of Carney should go on it as well. He won't, because first of all, after his talking points runs out, all you're going to hear from him is that's Estelle. He just all the time when he doesn't know what to say. That's number one. And number two, again, he's not going to come across as relatable the way Poilievre was. There's no way. It's the same reason why Kamala Harris did not go on the Joe Rogan podcast, but Donald Trump did. You know, Trump is just being himself. It's not hard to be yourself for 3 hours, but Kamala, you know, she's playing a game. She's putting on a face.
Yeah, Tim, I mean, there's a risk of being associated with someone like Rogan, who is a vaccine skeptic, you know, someone who endorsed Trump.
Ivermectin, yeah, worked great.
Right, you know, some controversial opinions on things. So, you know, just doing the show means that in some way you are tied to him, although, of course, they have different views on things. But
God, yeah, of course. Rogan is so controversial once again. It's just this entire trying to attach him. Controversial. Poilievre goes on a show. Controversial as well. It's yes. The mainstream media is not biased at all, guys. We're not seeing them trying to paint a picture here at all.
Tom, good morning to you. Are you
Good to be with you, Marcia.
Are you a Joe Rogan fan?
I find him relatively well informed.
It sounds like maybe he and Rogan went at it when it comes to Canada being the 51st state and being treated poorly by President Trump.
Poilievre is putting out that he talked a lot about tariff-free trade between Canada and the United States. That's super solid, safe ground for him.
Well, on the other hand, Tom, a lot of people have observed that Poilievre has been very critical of the Prime Minister always traveling, and yet here he has been traveling. He's been to the UK, now he's in the US. So how do you square that circle?
Carney's most recent trip to Norway was his 17th trip during the same time. And I think you just rhymed off pretty well the only trips that Poilievre has done. So
Imagine the timeline we're in when Thomas Mulcair, Angry Tom, is the one helping this poor CTV anchor from going into a full meltdown. And of course, we have our favorite nonpartisan journalist having herself an epic meltdown. When she saw that Poilievre was going on Rogan, she said on X, "We live in hell." Yes, Rachel, because Poilievre going on a podcast that you dislike is hell. Hell, perhaps, to you is someone who actually comes across as relatable, has good ideas, and gets to convey them to a wide audience, unlike you. And without further ado, let's go through various parts that I've highlighted in this entire 3-hour-long conversation and see what the entire hype was really about, and comment on it while we're at it.
Then I got a wicked tendonitis in my shoulder, and it ended my athleticism for like 4 years, and that's how I got into politics. I was so bored. I got to get home from school. I had nothing to do, so I told my mother.
Tendonitis got you into politics?
Yeah, that's what it was.
This I found interesting because I had no idea of the Pierre Poilievre lore, how he came into politics. And turns out when he was younger, he did wrestling and then he got tendonitis and he just couldn't wrestle anymore. So he's just like, screw it. we're going into politics. And that's kind of cool, I guess. I mean, it's a little bit like me. I played elite hockey all my life for like 15 years, and eventually that came to a stop due to a myriad of reasons. And then I got into business, and then eventually into political commentary. So, not becoming the next prime minister. No.
Didn't listen to people like them. Didn't listen to people who grew up on streets like ours. And living in Western Canada, there was a greater sense of that. We called it Western alienation at the time. And there was this guy, kind of a quirky guy, but a really brilliant guy named Preston Manning. And I saw this billboard of him, and he had his fist up and it said, "Enough." And I said, yeah, I like that guy. So I got involved in politics. And I started reading about different things. I read a biography on Fidel Castro, and then I read
Justin's dad.
No, not Justin's dad.
Right?
No. His dad was Pierre. His dad was Pierre. I had issues with Pierre Trudeau, too.
It is a great conspiracy theory, though.
Well, it is a hell of a... I don't think it's a true one, though. His dad is Pierre.
But, I mean, is it a conspiracy theory? I mean, guys, we've all seen these pictures, but come on. Like, yeah. I mean, Fidel, Trudeau, nose, eyes, chin, jaw, hair. Look, I'll just leave it at that.
And I love Canada. Like, I just say, I don't go up there anymore, but it's because I think the government went horribly wrong over the last, X amount of years. But the people are amazing. It's like, I've always...
Facts. And this is a sentiment I echo, by the way. The government has gone horribly wrong. Canada was a great place, can be a great place, but its government has just completely rendered it a living hell. So I understand Joe. I mean, me too, if I lived in the US, and I did for a couple of years. I mean, I did not miss Canada one bit. And I mean that. I did not miss it 1 second.
I said that Canada has it's like America with 20% less assholes. Like every time I would go up there, I'm like, people are so nice. They're like the nicest people. And I think that's part of what went wrong.
But I also kind of like the Americans because they're a little bit more just truly themselves, I guess. Rough around the edges. They're not scared to tell you how it is. But most importantly, the one thing I do like most about Americans versus Canadians is that they're not scared to aspire for more. They just got more guts. You know what I mean? It's they're more willing to risk things, to stand up to things, to defend things. They're more patriotic. And I don't mean patriotic like elbows up and let's not buy freaking American products in grocery stores. That's just silly stuff. And they're also a little bit more brash. It's like a lot of the things I say here would resonate so much more with an American audience, I find, than a Canadian one. Because in Canada, we're tamed to a certain extent, right? Everything has to be polite. Everything has to be carefully said as to not offend. And that's not my style. So maybe I'm just a American at heart with a Florida soul.
For Canada is that people are rule followers and, they're trusting and kind people. And, this wolf in sheep's clothing snuck in and, was pretending he was a sweet guy and passing all these crazy laws. And just when we saw what happened with COVID, with what happened with the truckers and people's accounts getting shut down for donating to the truckers, like the whole thing was so concerning because Canada was like a part of America almost. I mean, you're a different country, but it's like you used to be able to go over there with just a driver's license. It was such a cool place. I started going to the Montreal Comedy Festival in 1993. I loved it up there. It's like one of my favorite places to visit.
I mean, he makes an amazing point, and this is the one thing I have an issue with the whole elbows up, let's hate Americans and stay away from America. We are tethered at the hips. We are effectively cousins that share a similar umbilical cord. I don't know. It's a weird analogy, but it is what it is. We share the longest undefended border in the entire world, over 5,500 kilometers. Our economies are so intrinsically tied to one another. We defend our airspace together. Yes, two sovereign nations, but we're all part of that same North American. When you think of North America, you think of what? Canada and the US. Sure, Mexico and the Caribbeans and a few other Central American countries are in there, but let's be honest. North America is Canada and the US. But I get Joe's sentiment that it went freaking crazy in Canada during the Rona era. I left. I went to go live in Florida, just like any sane person would that had the opportunity or the ability to do so, because why would you want to be in Canada during that time? And it showed. It reared the government's true ugly face. The veil dropped and you got to see right away what their substance is. They want to control you and they loathe anyone who doesn't follow their narrative. And I'm not about that.
Just an amazing place. It's a great country, and to see it go the way it's been going and sliding the way it's been happening over the last X amount of years. There's just so many things that concern me. One of the things that really concerns me is this assisted suicide thing. That 1 in 20 deaths in Canada is now assisted suicide. That's insane.
Well, listen, my view is that people should have the choice, but the concern we have is the suggestion that it would be offered to kids or offered to people whose only condition is mental illness.
Right.
I don't agree with that.
My concern as well. I mean, if someone's got a terminal, like a good friend of mine went to Oregon to end his life because he had ALS.
Okay.
But I mean, he was gone. I mean, he could barely talk at the end of his life. His name is Michael Lair. He was a regular guest on Kill Tony. Great guy.
Right.
And it was horrible. I mean, watching him fade away, and he wanted to go out on his own terms. So he went to Oregon for assisted suicide. I mean, there's a place for it. Yeah. But I mean, there was a kid recently in Canada, and he did it for seasonal depression. I'm sure you're aware of that case.
I am.
Like, who allowed that to happen? Who didn't counsel this young guy? Who didn't give him a hug? Who didn't tell him about diet and exercise and changing your surroundings, your lifestyle, and just do something to give you some hope and happiness? Like, seasonal depression? Really? You're going to end your life, this beautiful life on this planet, for seasonal depression? That's crazy.
That's why we have to do more to give people hope when they're suffering with mental illness.
Yes.
Give people the sense that they can take back control of their lives. I think we do have to promote fitness more because it gives people, it turns them into a subject that controls their surroundings rather than an object being controlled. It teaches people that hardship is temporary and that the aftermath is positive. And we have to reinstill people with a sense of meaning when they're going through hardship, rather than to say that it's all over. And I think our system needs to be geared towards giving people all the best options to live on, rather than just suggesting MAID as the automatic path for the system to impose on people.
I love that. I mean, give people, one, agency over their life, but most importantly, purpose. That's what drives people. It's not about being happy. Happy is an emotion. It comes, it goes. It's like the weather. But what transcends all that is purpose. When you have something to wake up for in the morning and to sink your teeth into, depression fades away. Depression mostly stems from when you feel lost, you feel like there's no path forward, you feel like you're losing your time, wasting your time, when you're purposeless. So Poilievre is spot on. And once you have purpose, then you can take agency over your life. Instead of having a government come in and say, oh, you're not feeling good, have you considered just offing yourself? You need to form a system, a society, a culture, a community that uplifts one another and that gives opportunity for people to flourish. And sadly, right now, with the government we've had for over a decade, it's robbed people from their opportunity. People feel powerless. They feel like there's no hope. And instead of fixing this, they're giving them literally an exit door from life itself. Jeez.
So one of the things our party is pushing for is to make clear that public servants who are getting phone calls from people who are in need of help for something, they shouldn't be offering that. They shouldn't be offering MAID. People can seek it out if they want. But when you're calling up saying I'm poor or I'm struggling or I'm having a mental illness or I've got an injury, we shouldn't have a government worker saying, well, consider MAID.
Well,
I mean, there you go. And when you consider now, and I've seen reports, I'm not going to pull it up right now, but like a grandmother goes to the hospital and she's not feeling too well. The first thing the nurse says is, have you considered MAID? Are you out of your mind? What happened to the Hippocratic Oath? What happened to trying to treat people? What happened to humanity and compassion? That's the state of Canada. We've devolved to the point now where it's like, we don't even want to treat you because the system's overburdened and people just don't care.
The unfortunate thing is that any organization that gets formed wants to grow, and you get financial incentives, and then you hire more people, and then it gets bigger, and then what do you have to do? Well, you have to keep doing what you're doing.
Exactly.
Well, what are you doing? You're killing people. So you're going to kill more people because you're actually financially incentivized to put more people through this program and end their lives. It's very sad.
I think we have to get to a point where people have the freedom to make their own decisions, but they also have hope that there is an option for them.
Yeah,
and
give
that's what
them
we're trying
a pathway, and like
do.
Exactly, a pathway. And by the way, I'm so pro-freedom that I believe that MAID in extreme circumstances should exist, but I don't think it should be a first, second, third, or even fourth option ever. And we should be way more stringent on how it is administered and approved in the first place. And that's how it was sold to us initially, and that's how it started. But it's devolved so quickly into a tool now where it's quickly growing to what? Like the third leading cause of death in Canada? Like, are we serious right now?
We still, we are a free country and we are a democracy. We have preserved that. My leader, I had this funny moment when Joe Biden came to
Not sure, but go on.
Parliament Hill, and I said, Mr. President, I'm Pierre Poilievre. I'm the leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition. And he said, loyal opposition? How can you be loyal and opposition at the same time? It's like, what the hell are you talking about? And because you guys have a system based on a republic, whereas ours is the British system. And in our system, the opposition is an act of loyalty. That's what our system, it means that if you are opposing the government, you're doing it out of loyalty to the good of the people. In our House of Commons, you have a half circle in your Congress. We have two sides in our Parliament. It's 2.5 sword lengths apart because they used to literally kill each other in the old English days. But the idea is the opposition is to prosecute the hell out of the government, make the mighty low. The most powerful people in the country are supposed to tremble every time they walk in that place because every mistake they made, every abuse of power, every corruption they might have done can be exposed and in front of all eyes. So,
I mean, that sounds like the dream, right? Jeez. But for that, you actually kind of need to have a prime minister that's in the House of Commons in the first place and not just gallivanting around the world and avoiding question period. It does make sense at face value. The Westminster parliamentary system looks good. I'm going to make a video kind of like breaking down the difference between that and, the US Congress and US system, because I think the US has considerable more checks and balances that prevent abuse of powers, which we're seeing happening in Canada right now. But I digress. I mean, I like what he said there. It comes from the heart and it shows. And he's correct. His job is to oppose the government. And I think he does a fantastic job at that.
Oh, look, like I said, the way I grew up and everything I've seen ever since, when I talk to farmers or factory workers, electricians, I find they know just as much or more than the so-called experts I encounter on Parliament Hill. Like back during COVID when all these governments were printing money. And all the politicians and bankers said, oh, this is great. Well, look at all this money we get to spend. I'd walk around communities and I'd have like mechanics say, we're going to have inflation. And I would say, yeah, it makes sense to me. And I'd go back to Parliament Hill and the experts would all say, no, there's not going to be any inflation. And sure enough, all that money filtered into the economy, bid up all the goods we buy, and everybody got smoked with higher prices. But the point is that it was the common people who don't study this stuff for a living, who don't read endless reports and studies, who could just figure out that if there's money pouring into the economy that's not matched by goods and services, it's going to bid up the cost of everything. So that's my experience and my ideology is the common guy knows how to make his own decisions. We need to empower him to do that.
Yeah, just stay out of people's lives.
Exactly.
So,
Amen. Amen. I could not have said it better. I love that. Government should not be stepping in and controlling like a nanny state every facet of people's life. It should be small, limited, stick to national defense, stick to international treaties and negotiation, stick to commerce, stick to the judicial and protecting people's rights constitutionally and also enforcing contracts privately between people. And that's about it. Let people manage their lives. They know better. They really, 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 really do. Or maybe I sound like a crazy libertarian. Who knows?
like all of a sudden, there's this mandate, there's this law or rule being passed down, or at least it's being promoted, that you're not allowed to go to a gym and work out with other people. But those are the healthiest people. Those are the people that are the least likely to get sick. This is crazy to say. And if you're sick, and if you just have a good gym with good people, say, hey, don't show up if you're sick, everybody should be okay.
Right.
These are the people you should worry about the least.
We need to have common sense again. And too many governments in the Western world have gotten way too bossy. They're just looking for every excuse to boss people around. And that's what we have to.
Government want to govern more. That is the undeniable fact of life. So if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile and then some.
Push back again. And it's, EV mandates or, excessive control of the internet or the massive increase in the cost of government, which is really like appropriating the private voluntary economy into the coercive government economy. That's what we're seeing across Europe, in the UK. parts of the United States as well as back home. So we need to reverse that trend and get people back in charge of their lives.
Well,
I mean, I gotta give it to him. He's well informed. He's not in a cocoon. He sees the rise of authoritarianism, even dare I say tyranny, in Canada, but also abroad. Plenty of places in Europe are like that, and in some US states. And he's calling it out. And that is beautiful to see. I mean, and it gives me a little bit of hope as well, because if he's saying it, that means he knows it's there. Now, does it mean that he will take the steps to confront it? I think his party is trying to do it. He's trying to oppose C9, C8, C12, C22. The only issue right now is his hands are tied due to the fact that, he's probably in the minority government now, not going to form a majority. The Liberals are going to have complete authority and autonomy over everything. But still, I'm glad to see he's recognizing it and calling it out.
Yeah, this is the story of my life. It's frustrating.
is it that? But is it that simple? Is it really that this is what's holding everything up? The bureaucracy and the time it takes for permits and
Yeah, like a lot of things. So
regulations.
We have the same thing in housing, and so do you. Like if you look at
California
is terrible. Like why is there such a housing shortage in California? It's because it takes forever to get a permit, and there's always bureaucracy standing in the way, and it totally screws over the working class youth who can't find a place to live because they're not being built. And we have that challenge in Canada as well. So that's why I proposed ideas to cut the bureaucracy and the taxes so that we can build affordable homes for our youth, because right now we have a whole generation that can't afford homes. And that was one of the biggest issues I ran on. Home ownership is necessary for family formation, for civil peace in society.
And this is where you realize that conservatives are mostly people under the age of 50. And this is where you realize why this message did not resonate with the boomers who bought their house for about 2 loaves of bread and maybe a bale of hay back in the 50s, aka for like legitimately 20 grand. But Elliot, our interest rates were 72 million %. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The average price of a home back then was 3 times income. Today, it's 6, 7, or 8 times income. There's a disconnect. It's not even close. Boomers, spare me that freaking line. It doesn't work.
Everybody feels like they have a piece of the pie. We need to expand home ownership. But to do that, you've got to get the government gatekeepers out of the way, speed up the permits, free up the land, cut the development taxes.
So let's assume that you got in office. How?
Amen. Things are way too slow in Canada. Way too slow. The bureaucracy now, there's a reason. 20% of the population works for the government. Well, imagine how bloated that is. Have you ever tried to get anything done in a huge group? Nothing gets done ever. Ever. You want things to be efficient? Small groups.
Much time would it take to start implementing these things, and how quickly would that impact be felt by the Canadian people?
Look, I think a lot of them could move very quickly. There's a lot of projects that that investors are sitting on, but they don't have certainty in permits. So I would unblock that, and I think in the first year you would start to see immediate benefits for the working people who'd be getting these jobs. Some of it would take more and more like a medium term. Like the second thing I would go after is just the inflationary spending, which is a big problem all over the Western world. Like people just can't afford to live. I don't know if you encounter that around here.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
Inflation's crazy.
So,
and the national debt in America just went up to $39 trillion.
Right, which is bigger than your GDP.
It's a lot of money.
So explain this to me. 50 years ago, a barber and a waitress.
Okay, this is one of my favorite part of the entire interview, by the way.
Could buy a house with a big yard for a dog and raise 4 kids, meat and potatoes on the dinner table every night. And now an accountant and a lawyer can't do that. Why is that?
Well, there's a lot of spending and a lot of making money, a lot of just
cash,
turning, just making dollar bills with nothing behind it, nothing to back it.
This is the biggest fraud perpetrated on the working class people in the last 100 years.
Printing money is just insane. It's just the idea you just print more money. It's like, and people go, oh, okay.
Well, it looks painless at first,
right.
But if you have an economy with 10 apples and $10, it's $1 an apple. You double the number of dollars to 20, but you still only have 10 apples. Well, all of a sudden it's $2 an apple. It's not that the cost of apples has gone up. It still costs the same resources to grow and pick the apples. It's that the price has gone up because the value of the money has gone down.
Right.
So in America, over the last 55 years, you've doubled the number of homes in America from about 70 million to 150 million. You know how much the money supply has grown? 30 times. So you have twice the homes, but 30 times the cash. So what's happened? Housing costs have gone up 15-fold in 55 years. And now an entire generation of kids can't afford homes. We have exactly the same problem in Canada. This is the biggest wealth transfer from the working class to the elites, from I say the have-nots to the have-yachts.
This is so refreshing to hear someone from the Canadian political class so eloquently explain the scam that is being perpetrated on us. He understands why we are so messed up economically in Canada and in the West in general. Man, we got to get that guy as the next prime minister ASAP instead of a central banker who perpetuates this money printing scam. Like, I can't believe we don't have this guy as the prime minister and we're stuck with Carney instead. Jesus.
And we need to get back to hard money. Everything should be getting cheaper, by the way. You know, it takes 60 to 80% less resources to grow food. We grow 4 times the food on the same acre, get 4 times as much milk from the same cow. We use 80% less water and fertilizer. So why isn't it that food is not less expensive? It's because all of those gains are being erased by monetary inflation. So it's not that food is more costly, it's that the money we use to buy it has less purchasing power. And we need to do what the Swiss do, which is they don't print money. They have balanced budgets. They have almost no deficit. And they have almost zero inflation in Switzerland. They have the strongest money in the world, the Swiss franc. And we would all be better if we operated like the Swiss when it comes to our money.
Again, he impresses me with the fact that he even mentions Switzerland. He's damn right. First of all, the Swiss franc is one of the world's strongest currency. It's worth more than the US dollar. It's worth more than the euro. It's definitely worth more than a Canadian peso or Canadian Tire monopoly. But on top of that, if you look at the historical inflation rate of Switzerland, they are at either 0% inflation, marginal inflation of like 0.2, 0.3, 0.4%, and some years even mild deflation. That's right. Things get cheaper. Not massive deflation where all the economists are going to go crazy, but imagine if like year over year things got a little bit cheaper, or at least the money you earned kept its freaking value instead of being worth less and less and less. Instead of your food, your grocery being 30 or 40% more expensive in like 5 years. Man, I'm so glad he mentioned Switzerland. And again, it shows his grasp of economics and how the world operates. He's not stuck on this little system of like Canada's doing it the best way. No, he's got his eyes open. He's looking broad.
Turn things around.
Well, in addition, so I like this idea that actually, believe it or not, that Bill Clinton and the Republicans did in the 90s in the U.S. It was called the pay-go law. It was a very simple principle. Every time the administration wanted to bring in a new dollar of spending, they had to match it with a dollar of savings. So there was no extra net spending for like 8 years. And that's when your government balanced its budget and paid off $400 billion of debt. That law lapsed in 2002. And immediately after that, America went back into deficits, and you haven't emerged. You've been in deficit now for 25 years. This is about internalizing the scarcity. Every creature in the universe, every bird in the trees, every fish in the seas has to live with scarcity, maximizing use of scarce resources. The only creature who doesn't do that is the politician, because he's out.
I mean, he's right. That's so true. I mean, you look at nature, it's all about resources, all of it. But then politicians, they think it's infinite. I mean, he makes the point right now. Listen up.
I was using someone else's money. Right. It's like, oh, well, I'll just print it or borrow it or tax it. It's not my money. And so they routinely show up to their cabinet meetings and say, well, I've got a new idea. It's $100 million. Where are you going to get it? I don't know. We'll print it. We'll borrow it. We'll tax it. Not my money. But if you had a law saying you can't actually bring a proposal to cabinet unless you have matching savings to pay for it, well, then you'd have these politicians walking up and down the hallways in their departments looking for waste and like rooting it out. So
Doge, baby, Doge. That's the Canadian version of Doge. I love it. This makes total sense. Look, if you run a company, heck, screw a company. If you run just your own household, you have a budget. You cannot just out of thin air print money, invent money. You're stuck with your income. You got your expenses. And if you're coming up short, you find solutions. You cut here, you cut there. That's what Canadians do every single day of their lives. Why do we allow our bureaucrats to just rob us? Because in the end, we're the ones who are going to have to make cuts day to day to feed these bloated bureaucrats and their stupid programs that just don't work. We need to bring fiscal responsibility, and this is just so good. Damn.
Corn oil and canola oil, all this.
When it's better just to have tallow or butter.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
like natural food. Your body knows what to do with it.
Yeah, and beef is like a superfood. A
Yeah.
nice fatty piece of beef, best thing you can eat.
It's so good for you.
You got
and this-
iron, you've got fat, you've got protein and creatine. It's all packed into that one superfood.
It is. And
I just want to take a second to show that he's a gym bro. No, but he understands also other facets, not just the economy, not just history, nutrition as well. They go on to talk about how the sugar industry and the fats and seed oils and whatnot. I am like awestruck at how much he knows. Now, Poilievre is also trains hard. You know, he works out good and he eats healthily. But yes, he's damn right. Beef is amazing. Eat more beef. Much to the disdain of Chick-fil-A in the US, whose tagline is eat more chicken, but whatever. I love Chick-fil-A. I'm guilty of that. But yes, man, we need to make Canada healthy again. Make Canada healthy again.
about Alberta separating.
That won't happen.
What was that about?
It won't happen. Some people are frustrated, but there's some legitimate frustrations. But at the end of the day, Canada's going to be united. And Albertans, I'm born and raised Alberta, and Albertans are seriously patriotic Canadians.
Very patriotic.
Yeah.
This is where I kind of diverge a little bit from him. I'm not opposed to Alberta separation. And the reality is that although I understand where Pierre's coming from when he says that, and of course he wants to keep the Federation together, and I'm sure he would if he was in power, because then Alberta would not be getting screwed over as much and everyone would be prospering a heck of a lot more. The reality is right now, today, the truth, what we're facing, Alberta would be better off separating. Just facts for facts, they would be. I mean, there's very little upside for them staying and tremendous downside for staying in the Federation and tremendous upside for leaving it. As such, I get why he's saying it. I don't hate him for saying it, but I disagree. Like Alberta, it's gaining steam. Sovereignty's gaining steam.
Leave them alone. Like, leave people alone. Let people have a glass of whiskey. Let people have a glass of wine with dinner. Leave them alone. Like, stop coming up with laws where you can impose your values and your morals and your judgments on other people. Let them make their own personal. Look, if you want to eat a fucking cheeseburger, eat a cheeseburger. You know, if you want to go and have 5 Big Macs, you should be able to. I don't think you should do it, but I don't think there should be a law stopping you. And I think that should apply to a lot of things in life, and we'd be a lot better off.
Well, the bottom line is if you cannot trust a man to govern himself, how can you trust him to govern for others? Like if you think that
Yes.
human nature is so flawed that people cannot make decisions for themselves, then how could you possibly trust human nature to make decisions for other people, to impose decisions on their lives? And who watches the watchmen? You know,
Right.
we're constantly told we need to be kind of guided by these people from ivory towers. But who are these angels anyway?
Right.
They're just human beings like everyone else. So when you give them more power and you give them the power to impose their will on people, then that ultimately gets abused.
Yes.
So you're right, even when somebody is doing something that I don't agree with, and I would think it would be better for all of us if they didn't do it, the mal that is done by giving me the power to impose my decision-making on them is worse than the benefit of trying to direct them towards a better decision.
Woo! Baby, that was a flawless. Mwah! Chef kiss. Absolutely. Let people decide for themselves. Let people manage their lives. People know better how to manage their life. It doesn't mean it will be an equal outcome. Some people will make the wrong choices. Some people will make bad choices. Some people will thrive and succeed. Let them be. Stop trying to control everyone. And most importantly, we have to stop enabling these people to manage us. Trust yourself. Take agency over your life. It's going to give you purpose. With purpose, no maid.
That all sounds amazing. How the hell did you lose? How can a rational person not vote for that? I mean, you're not saying anything that's restrictive. You're not saying anything that is in any way infringing on people's rights or liberties. Or it just sounds like it's all just 100% positive for Canada.
I wonder that too, Joe. I wonder that too. That CBC-induced coma. It's powerful. It's powerful.
That's what I think. That's my mission, and I think it will be positive. And we'll get there. You know, Canadians do things through evolution, not revolution. So I'm just going to keep pushing my ideas, and I think overwhelmingly we'll win the next election.
And this is the one thing that I sadly dislike about Canada. We do things through evolution and not revolution. Sometimes in life, you need that revolution. That's the American way. They didn't become independent through pen and paper and signing and negotiation. They tried. It failed. They rose up and they made it happen. They built their country from literal blood. and they sacrificed it all. And to that, I say, God bless America. And that's the main difference between Canada and them. So in short, guys, if you haven't watched the entire thing, I highly recommend it. Great interview. Go on Spotify, YouTube. And if you want to also know what's going on in Canada right now when it comes to this new censorship committee that Carney has just put in place and that will restrict people like me from even saying things online, then click in the video that will appear right here, right there, and give yourself a good little listen to the past report that I put out. My name is Eli Daniel, and I'll see you guys the next time.